Okay. Hi, Anthony. Thanks a million for joining the podcast. It's fairly impromptu. We literally just met and had to ask each other's names again, but give us a bit of background on who you are and what you do.
So my name's Anthony Forrester. I am the primary school specialist development officer. I put the word specialist in because it sounds better. For Newcastle Eagles, for the Eagles Community Foundation, which is the charitable arm of the Eagles organisation, which basically delivers the outreach programme across the northeast. So my area is working with children reception age up to year 6, which is like 5 to 11, and developing their passion for the game and supporting the coaches in what they're delivering to that age group to make sure it's appropriate.
Okay, very good. And you were involved in soccer coaching before you got into basketball coaching. Tell us a bit about that move over.
Yeah, so I was coaching from the age of 19 after playing just grassroots, and got a job at Gateshead College at the football academy when it was kind of new. A lot of FE colleges doing football now, football programs. But the academy was well set up, it was very successful, and I was lucky enough to be part of that for like 9 years, coaching goalkeepers. Along with that, I did Gateshead FC's youth team, goalkeepers, worked with the reserve team occasionally, sometimes the first team. And then I got a job at Sunderland Academy for 3 years doing the goalkeepers there, at the foundation phase, age 8 to 12. So yeah, it was just a lot because I had a young family at the time, so I had to take a step back from the Sunderland thing because the evenings. But I also worked with the women's team at Sunderland at the time, which was great. And that kind of took over the academy coaching. And then the job here came up, I think 2018, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2017, to work as a development officer for the Gateshead area. I'm a Gateshead lad, lived there all my life, so it seemed like a really good opportunity. I've got, obviously, a basketball background, big fan of the Eagles since they came into the BBL in the early 2000s, and it was just the perfect fit, really. And I absolutely love the job. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Did you ever cross over with there was an Irish girl there from Donegal, Niamh McLaughlin in Sunderland? It might have been after you left. She plays Gaelic football now.
No, she was after I left.
Probably, yeah, okay, right, interesting. And
there was Sarah, I'm trying to remember, Sarah McFadden. I'm hazy on the names.
Yeah, that's all right, not to worry. It was just interesting because I've interviewed Niamh, and she spoke about her time here, so it's sort of interest. But what was it like coming over? You obviously said the Eagles being here, one of the most successful BBL franchises. It is the actual most successful, but coming over, what was the kind of starting out? Obviously the fan base when the team moved here originally, we spoke about before we recorded, was nothing, but when you came in, and how do we, I suppose what I'm trying to take away from you is how do we in Irish clubs build what the Eagles have managed to build with the underage setups?
The foundation was the key. Paul is incredibly bright and incredibly astute. He's got an unbelievable head for business. There's podcasts out there which he goes into in much more detail than I will, but Paul was very smart in the early days to think we need to grow an audience, we need to grow the sport itself to get a consistent young audience. So the foundation started, and the idea was we'll deliver programs, and the main one was Hoops for Health, which is the flagship program for year 5 and 6, where we have the players go out to the school to do a roadshow in the afternoon, and alongside that they get 4 hours of coaching, then they get entry into a tournament, and then the finals of the tournament are on a match night. So it all comes together where all the kids come to a game, and it's all packaged up. It's a brilliant package. But when I came in, the foundation was well established. I was really lucky to come into a situation where there was a real vision. There was a player pathway there. You had the college programs at Time Met and Gateshead in place. You had all of the schools consistently coming along to these tournaments and delivering stuff in their schools. And you had the growth of the local clubs, which is the big thing for me. And I think one of my biggest passions as part of the job is each of us have to run a club. Some of us run 2 clubs. Colleague Matty Langley runs 2 clubs. Jack Bertram runs 2 clubs in different parts of the northeast. And they do an unbelievable job because to run 1 club is hard enough. So it's a fair play to them for running 2. But the clubs is really where we encourage the kids from the school programme come along and play away from school, and then it goes from there to where they play at the arena every weekend at the Central Venue League. So it's a brilliant model, and it was in place when I got here. The big difference, which I've tried to implement, and was part of my strategy immediately, was can we get the younger ones playing Key Stage 1, Year 1s, Year 2s, and that's due to my football background. I had a lot of experience coaching that age group, perhaps more experience than some of the coaches that were already here, who were perhaps less comfortable at that age group. So that became my big focus, and from there we grew. The club I was involved in at Cardinal Hume School in Gateshead, we went from 70 players. The membership now sits at 260. I think I left it when I was around on about 185, and my colleagues taking it on and taking it even further. And it's just getting them in young, keeping them and creating. I always say there's a difference. There's two types of people. There's kids that play basketball, and there's basketball players. And we had a lot of kids that played basketball, but I wouldn't say we had a lot of players, if that makes sense. So like the younger ones now are developing the skill acquisition and part of the subculture, from how they're dressing to the stuff they watch on YouTube to who their favourite player is. It kind of all comes together, and getting them to Eagles games was huge. The more games they can come to, like I was a kid going to St James's Park, it just accelerates their passion for the game. So yeah, that's my, in the long answer, sorry, that's me.
No, it was great.
It's me show.
And just so I know, sorry, so this shows my lack of knowledge around the English school system, but Year 1, Year 2, Year 4, Year 5, what age group is that?
So Year 1, Year 2 is like 6, 7.
Okay.
Year 3 is 8, Year 4, 9. Typically, anyway. Year 5, 10, Year 6, 11. But basketball, we were in, because it's not, there's not the uptake. Perhaps one day there will be. That would probably be the dream. But there's not the intake to be able to run it like football, where we have under 7s, 8s, 9s. So we run in 2-year age gaps, which enables us to have enough players for teams. So the youngest team at CVL, I've got a team that have got some Year 2s in, but they're very skilled and they can handle the ball, so the size is less of a disadvantage. But generally speaking, it's Year 4, 5 with some Year 3s playing. In an ideal world, we'll get to a situation in a year or two where we have a separate division for Year 2, 3, where they can play and where they can be against kids of their size. There's just not enough of that age group yet to guarantee a game where they're all pretty much the same age.
Yeah, because in Ireland, the way it works in terms of, I've a Gaelic football background, it's amateur sport, but the nursery or the academy in the club is 4 and 5-year-olds, and then 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds are kind of the next stage up. But basketball doesn't have the intake like the academies, and we were talking about before we recorded. Are you missing getting or even converting the kids that could be kids that play basketball to basketball players if you had them in earlier? Would that be kind of what do you think of that?
Get them in earlier, get them playing earlier, younger, and make it their sport, make it their primary sport. Because I mean, I don't want to speak for a time when I wasn't here, but if you go in Year 5, 6, you are looking at, so don't get me wrong, good amount of the audience, I'm sure, with just basketball players, but without that grounding in the ball handling and the dexterity of being able to dribble with both hands, change direction quickly, keep control of the ball. If you've gone through your life as a footballer, as a rugby player, and you come into basketball age 6, my experience is your body wants to go that way, but you don't have the dexterity to take the ball with you without losing it. And like the younger you get them playing, the better. And also it becomes their thing, it becomes their passion. But we talked about this the other day about like specialising as well, that the big research in football now, the whole 10,000 hours thing has been debunked in terms of specialising too early. When you go on any youth award course, when back in the football days, they would always say multi-sports, dodgeball, football, cricket, tennis. And that's the one thing that isn't really happening as much anymore. People specialise very early. I don't think it's a bad thing with basketball that the specialism happens early. I think it's kind of what we need at this stage. But some of my best players play multiple sports. Some of my best athletes will be footballers as well. or tennis players, because they've got that agility, the hand-eye coordination, and the ability to judge distances and that type of thing. So yeah, I personally believe the younger we can get them playing, the better.
I'm interested in that because there's kind of this conversation in Ireland that should we have an official, Irish Basketball Academy, kind of like, Berkin Abbey, stuff like that. And it's kind of going back to the specialism part is, well, if your best athletes, let's say, for example, some of our top athletes in Ireland play inter-county level Gaelic football, so they're the elite, athletes in another sport, are you then taking it away? But I had a great conversation with someone recently, they're an Irish international coach, and it was about how the basketball players can transition to Gaelic football, but Gaelic football players can't transition to basketball. Yeah, so that's the kind of vibe I got from what you were trying to say there.
That's exactly the point, because you've got 10 players on a small space, and the nuances of being able to handle the ball, whether it's something as basic as taking it from the right hand side, ribbing it through to my left hand side, making a left-handed pass off a forward pivot, you just don't get that movement pattern very often, along with taking the ball with you and being able to handle it under pressure as well. And I find that the players who've played loads of invasion games, whether it's football, they come in too late. They just can't get that. We practice together eventually, and that's why we were talking about the other day, like even at the 14s, when you've got players who've come in at age 12, 13, and you do have them join late because secondary school, quite often basketball's on the curriculum a lot. So they'll come along with the club, but when their friends is there, the club, and they'll try it. Especially post-lockdown, we've seen a lot of sort of 10, 11-year-olds who were inactive. So we had a big rush of recruitment at that age. They struggle a lot initially because they just don't have those movement patterns, and the body wants to go where the brain wants to go where the body can't go whilst controlling the ball. Like I say, it's really tricky. So that's focus on fundamentals, ball handling, using both hands, as much dribbling and training as we can. So when I'm in the younger age groups, as a rule, half the sessions basketball each, usually 3/4 of the session, because we do shooting, make sure they got a ball each. Less structure, more like organised chaos. So we don't put them in lines. We try and keep them on the move, whether it's a treasure hunt game where you score a basket, you get a cone, you pick it up, you put it in your pile, get a bit of treasure. Things like that to just keep them dribbling the ball as much as possible. Because when they go away at home and when they're practicing, they're just shooting. Like, I don't know how many of them do. I always say to them, you do more, but I think most of them will find a hoop and just shoot, because that's that instant gratification. But actually, I want more of them to work on the handles. So we're developing that basketball player, and we're seeing now some of the year 3s, 4s and 5s in our programme are really skilled, so it's working. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. What do you say then when people kind of combat that and say, well, what about the late bloomer, the girl or the boy that picked up sport at that kind of later age? Maybe it's not as late as 14, 15, but maybe 11, 12, and maybe you might have missed the boat, let's say, in the academy terms, in air quotes. But what do you say to kind of the people that make the argument of, oh, the late bloomers, what do you think?
I think with anything, if you throw yourself into it and you practice, you can make up for the lack of training when you were younger. But if you're a late bloomer and you come in at 11, 12, and I've seen these players that we're talking about, they'll come to training and then they won't do anything else, and then they'll wonder why they're not getting better quicker. But some of them, whether it's Tozan, who was at Princeton, who came through our programme and won last night in the March Madness, he's obviously athletically gifted, 6'10" and everything else, but he still had to put the work in. There's quite a lot of academy players who have started. The current ones that probably did start in year 5, 6, and through hard work, they've put the work in and they've got there. But if you can come, with all of that, the handles, and then keep that going, and then you're growing into your body as you grow, spurt happens, with that technical ability, for me, that's always going to give you more in your locker than someone who is picking it up at the age of 12. Athletically, he's a one-off. The coaches did an amazing job with him, obviously. it isn't easy just because you're big. You have to still learn the game and throw yourself into it. But he did multi-sports as well. I mean, I think RGS kid, so exposed to a lot of sports. But the big thing for me is from the bottom up. You know, get them playing, get the right shooting form, get the right dribbling off each hand, being able to change direction quickly, and come through that way, and making sure our leagues are pitched in such a way that they're equitable and you're playing against kids at your level. You don't want blowouts. Doesn't do anybody any good. So Mon does a brilliant job. Mon Walton, who runs the league, he does a fantastic job with the league because he's always flexible in moving teams to ensure that, okay, if you're having it too easy, we'll move you up. If you're struggling, we'll move you down. And that keeps it quite grounded. It keeps the players challenged.
When you're kind of observing from afar across all sports and players you've watched or anything, I love asking this question, but what are the attributes of elite players? What separates the best from the rest of the pack?
I always think, from rubbing shoulders with some at the college in Gateshead, I wasn't running the elite teams, and the same way here, my work pretty much stops at year 6 with the kids. But I always say to the kids, you know, what makes a great player? What makes a truly great player? And once you've gone through the answers of great shooter, great athlete, you sometimes get great leader thrown in, which is great when the kids say that. But I like to be more specific, and my conclusion always to the children is the measure of a really great player is, can you make your teammates better? Can you bring them up to your level or close to your level, and have that in the back of your mind the whole time? In basketball terms anyway, individual sport, it's single-mindedness, it's different. You've got to be obsessively... If you hear the podcast, if you hear things from Mo Farah and Paula Radcliffe and, you know, Ian Thorpe, you know, these individual athletes, the stuff they put themselves through is unbelievable. That takes a different type of mental strength. But the key for me is, can you make people better? Can you recognise? And again, in my role, one of the biggest things I like to do, especially in primary schools, is make them think. So we'll say it's a 5v5 game. Everybody on your team scores 10, right? One of their team scores 49. No one else scores. Who wins the game? And obviously it's the team that have got 50 when they've all pitched in. And talking them through in that manner gets the message across that this has to be a team game. And this is nothing new. I mean, Phil Jackson in his Maverick book in the 70s, basketball cannot be anything but a team game, was the quote that came from that book. And if you look at Jordan, which is kind of my era when I first fell in love with the game, Jordan didn't win until he had good teammates around him, and then he had to find a way of not bullying them and bringing them along for the ride, which I personally think he still kind of struggled with a little bit. But he found a way, and it was Jackson that found a way with the triangle offense, wasn't it? To force Jordan to pass the ball and find space and finish games well rather than take 40 shots by the third quarter. So it's those messages of inclusivity which are huge. And again, in the remit of my role, if they're playing and there's a player on the court that hasn't touched it much, it'll be a quiet word with the best player, with the most talented one. Look, Amelia hasn't touched it, or Stevie hasn't touched it yet. You know, can you do us a favour? Can you get them a score? Not can you get them the ball, but can you get them a score? Can you guide them towards the corner where you dish, you know, and create a score for them? And then make sure you give them a high five afterwards. Now, Amelia and Stevie don't have to know I've had that conversation. I'm not going to say, look, guys, these three haven't touched it yet, because that's just going to embarrass them. But if you do it discreetly, speak to the players individually, and then you see what they're made of, whether they really want to do it, whether they recognise and get on board with why you're asking them to do it, or whether they just follow because it's a command. So, yeah, long answer, but like for me, aside from all the technical, physical, social, psychological attributes and the four corners model, if you like, and tactical, of course, it's, can you recognise you need everyone to be a team? You need to be that player that leads from the front but takes people with them on the journey.
Brilliant. I love the way you said there about not only getting the player the ball, but helping them guide another player to get a score.
Yeah, get a score.
And that's not only developing you know, obviously leadership and teamwork, but it's also probably developing their IQ, that they're not just thinking about what I can do to impact the game. That I score 50 points, it's how do I get, or 49 points, how do I get the other 4 people to score a combined 50 points?
100%. And this is why, and Ian McLeod, who's exceptionally knowledgeable, it's great to have Ian come into the role of development manager, because he's got a good outlook on that, which is very much, I don't want to be a big guy just standing under the hoop. I want him dribbling. I want him bringing the ball up, a point forward. Can everyone handle? So the way he's always approached the game at the college where I first met him, because he came into the basketball academy when I was at Gateshead College, which I ran as well alongside the football. He's very much, let's get away from your tall, go and stand under the basket. Let's get everybody touches. And always thought of that approach with the young'uns. Like, you see what the strong kid will do, the best kid, if you like, let's just call him the best kid, him or her. They'll make somebody else put the ball in on the inbound. That's the first thing. They'll tell somebody, you put the ball in. Why? Because they won the ball. And they know if they put the ball in on the inbound, they might not touch it again. So it's managing things like that and putting conditions in your training to not punish that kid, because there's nothing wrong with the best kid dominating. At the end of the day, that's the role of the best kid, is to do well and dominate. But can you dominate with a sense of empathy for others? Can you bring people along with you? And we have a responsibility as coaches to tweak our practices, I think, to facilitate that without punishing the kid. It may be, generically speaking, for this game, conditioned game, if you've scored, you can't score the next basket. But if you assist the next basket, next time you score, you can score 2 in a row. And getting them thinking about little conditions like that, just to make them think, and make them think, not pass first. You don't want a pass first mentality, because we're trying to develop them as ball handlers. But and have some empathy and have some appreciation for the fact that sooner rather than later, somewhere along the line, you're going to need your teammates. And if you don't let them touch the ball and feel valued, then they're not going to be there for when you need them.
Brilliant. I love that condition as well. Are there any other useful conditions that you find kind of bring that, not only the dominant players and the best players along, but the whole team? Is there anything useful you find that you can share?
It's really interesting, because you get different things from other coaches. People will sometimes put a pass condition in where you have to pass it so many times. Myself and Ian were talking about this the other day. I don't really like that, because it takes away the instinctive element. If you want to encourage more passing, you would just have it overload. You would play a 5v3, where it was with corner shooters in a box them off, so that's like a channel where they can't come out of it. Or you would play like a 3-possession game. And a lot of this is from my football background, really, where the imperative was keeping people on the move. How can we keep people on the move? How can we involve everybody in the game? Because at every session I deliver, I don't like kids sitting down. So can you find a way of making sure they're involved in the game? But certain conditions, would be your point guard this week. Just change the point guard every week, so they bring the ball up the court. And you don't want to condition it too much. It's more sporadic and it's more instinctive, based on, effectively, we have to have them come back, you see. Like, they have to come back. And if you're not touching the ball, you're probably not going to come back to the sport. And our jobs rely on people coming to training and growing the clubs. So I guess the best condition would be play 2v2s and 3v3s. If you play a 5v5 up and down game, even with your 5 kids, the best athlete will dominate, the best child will dominate. And no matter what happens, not everyone will leave that court feeling included, particularly if you've got a 20-minute game. So one of the things I do with the club is I'll have a matches night where every 3 or 4 weeks, usually last session of the month, we'll just play. And the kids know on the build up to that session, it's just games all night, 2v2s, 3v3s, then we'll finish with 4v4 or 5v5 depending on the age group. And you won't put any conditions on that, because it's 2v2. You don't need conditioning. At some point in time, they're going to have to pass, because then it's playing 2v2, and physically it's quite demanding. So the more they play, the more they pass it, because they maybe don't have it in their legs to keep dribbling, and then they're looking for their teammates. So I wouldn't say it's specific rules which really restricts them. I don't like a pass condition rule, you might say everyone has to touch the ball, which is the same rule, but then it sends a better message than just saying you have to pass 3 times. You ever been there when you've said you got to pass 3 times, and the best 2 players will just stand there and pass 3 times to each other, and then they'll go and dribble. So players will find a way to cheat the system. So you got to be aware of that as well. But yeah, anything which gets everybody involved is a good thing. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Scoreboard Soccer by David Bird?
No.
I sent you that. It is brilliant. I remember I'm on a coaching group, and if you want to be added to it, let me know. It has coaches.
I kind of feel like I have to be because you mentioned it on the podcast.
There you go. I'll ask the admin to add you. But it's brilliant because it's coaches from around the globe at different levels, you know, and it's interesting. There's loads of elite coaches, you know, international coaches, you know, stuff like that. But something I'd love to do is add more academy coaches and talk to like people like this, because I think the value, like I'm now thinking of what can I take for my girls who are a little bit older. But it's really interesting concept. It's about how let's say you have a game, it's 5-on-5, so you do have a small sided game, but you see, let's say someone gets a score and that's great for that player, but if you see Jenny make a pass to Sarah who got the goal, it's Jenny, you what they do is you come out of the game and there'll be something separate in the game, that it's an extra skill that they practice, or it's like the one I like is X's and O's.
X's and O's,
because it gets them thinking about the game, and it gets them thinking during a game that they're trying to not only play the match, but they're trying to also win X's and O's on the side of the pitch. And it kind of like what you're saying is
tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'll send you on all the stuff, but what I love about it is it recognises the kids that like what build up to the score. And what I love in Gaelic football is when someone makes a big block, I'll always give an extra point to the team and say that's brilliant. Whereas now it's like, you know, go and do that, you know, whatever game it is, and they can pick the game. But it's kind of like adding what you're saying. Not only even with those dominant kids, what I love I'm going to use is get someone else involved, but it's recognising the other player, that you reward them, and that's what keeps them coming back then every week.
Brilliant, absolutely. Having that, if you put the person first ahead of the player, you can't go wrong, especially with the younger ones, because you need the retention. Because if they're not feeling good and if they're not confident, then they slowly sort of retract into themselves, and they become the pass-burst mentality, you know, and then they don't express themselves. So yeah, for me at training, you've got to group them in terms of ability. You know, you've got to have. Rarely will we go huge tournament round robin. We'll usually go, okay, we'll go round robin, but we'll have 5 teams this half, 5 that half, on 4 baskets each and 3 baskets whatever, and we'll make sure you're still at your level. I've got no problem doing that with younger ones. You sometimes get the whole, they'll realise that they're not as strong as them. But the flip side is, well, okay, do you want your kid to go there and struggle for an hour? So, but I like what you just said there. And Calvin, who used to be part of us, he's now with the Hollypool Huskies. He's set up his own club. Calvin George, really good coach, great guy with the younger ones. And he helped grow the Gateshead program when he was here. He came in as the sessional coach, if you like, to really help me grow the Gateshead side of things. He does basketball bingo, where you don't keep points. You have a board with 16 different ways of scoring on, and the winning team has to score in all of those different ways. It might be offhand layup, it might be jump stop, it might be a screen and roll, depending on the age, of course. Could be simplified if you're younger. But he showed me that, and that's something we do with the club, because the kids realise, I haven't had an offhand finish yet, or I haven't had a corner jump shot. So all of a sudden now they're rushing to the corner, but then the defence reads it, so it's like, how do we still make that corner jump shot? Well, I've got to drive middle and then dish. The help comes. So it just makes them think a different way about the game.
Brilliant. I'm going to rob that as well. That's really clever.
Basketball bingo.
Yeah, that's really, really clever.
And I always think you give your session to the kids. So don't dictate what's on the board. Kids, tell me 10 ways to score, and let them give you the answers. You know, so it's more inclusive. And
brilliant.
They have more.
That's even better again.
Yeah, they have more autonomy for the task. I mean, it's child psychology 101, but if you give the kids the autonomy to set the practice up, and really set the parameters of what you're doing, they have more enthusiasm for that task. So it's huge. We do a shooting thing in school where as I say, you score a basket, you get a cone, and there's 30 in the class, and I'll say to half the class, you've got to do an animal with the cones. So when you get the cone, as you're playing the game, you've got to decide what animal you're going to draw. So the cones end up the shape of the animal. So you put the cones down, and then there's always the leader that emerges. It's usually the bossy one, who, no man, we're doing a pig. That doesn't look like a pig. And, you know, it does, man, it does. It looks like a pig. And so they would do a different animal. And the fact you're giving them that freedom, the biggest thing I think is, like, when you work on primary school age, if you can give them the autonomy and the responsibility to almost decide which pathway the session takes, you're going to get a better session. And it might be they do the warm-up. And by the way as well, I came in from a football background, so I was kind of a bit raw with that age group. I was working with the women's team and the 16s, 17s, 18-year-olds. I knew me fox and rabbits, and I knew me, you know, stuck in the mud in those games. But I didn't have loads of them in my locker. So the first 6 months was in primary schools. Okay, who's doing the warm-up? And they would do the warm-up and I would steal their idea. So, yeah, they would do Flora's Lava and Sharks and Fishies and all these games. And I'd be like, I like that, I'm stealing it, writing it down. And so the kids have literally written probably half my content. I shouldn't be saying that, really.
Do you ever hear of Save the Turtles?
Save the Turtles?
Yeah, this is a new one for me. I was at a coaching conference last week, and they were giving a shout out Shane Keegan. I don't think he's going to listen, but he's a GPO. It's similar to your role for Gaelic football, and he was like, I always go in, and he gave us kind of the structure to his session, and he's in Portlaoise, and he sees about 1,000 kids a week, like it's heavy going, but he's half an hour with each class, and he said, I always start with a chasing game, because that tires them out. Yeah. And the one thing, and the way he phrased it was just brilliant. I'll send you, if the talk was recorded, I'll send you. It's just fantastic. But he said, the one they love is Save the Turtles. I was like, what the hell is Save the Turtles? I've never heard of this one. But it's there's obviously someone on, and it's chasing game. But they when they catch someone, you have to lie on your back and you have to be like a turtle. And what I like about it is how do you save them? It's kind of like stuck in the mud. You go through the legs, but you have to flip them over, and it's kind of that camaraderie of you know what I mean? Like kind of flip them over. Or you could probably do like a jockey pack or something. And it's kind of like what he said though. Start with a game, and you know you get them tired, and then you can work on the skill, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
But how do you keep the kids coming back? Is it that kind of basalt bingo? What do you find great for retention? Is it those games that they love and they dictate?
Well, if we're talking clubs, I mean, schools have got no choice. We're going in there and delivering. Other than the after-school clubs, where sometimes if they're not enjoying it, they might not come back. But you've got to be on the case with that. But when it comes to our clubs, our junior clubs, there's a few things. The biggest one for me is get them in teams, because if you can be as part of a team, then you've got them basically. So Wickham Royals has got 13 under-10s teams. Because I didn't feel, I mean, you can't, we're playing 4v4 and it's a running clock. It's not a very long game. I think it's 80 minutes because of how tight we are for space, because of the growth. We've got the biggest league it's ever been. It's been the biggest it's ever been. So if you get them in teams, now you could have teams of 8 or teams of 9. So you don't have to have as many teams, but I was like, that's not much court time. And then you do run the risk of the parents who are helping the volunteers looking at the scoreboard and thinking, well, we're 2 up and there's 5 minutes left and I want to get little Johnny on, but he's not the strongest, so I'll leave it a bit. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't get much game time. So get them in teams. We have 13 teams, like I say. We've got 6 kids in each team. We rotate 2 subs. And if 1 or 2 can't make it, then kids are playing a full match. I'm not a fan of substitutes. I've made this point a lot since I came into the job. I don't particularly agree with the fact that CVL Central Venue League teams have got 12 for a 5v5 game with a running clock. I think what we're looking at next year is potentially saying we have to cap it and making actually standardised that we're going to cap the game time. But in terms of the club, yeah, if they're part of a team and they've got a WhatsApp group and then they've got the photos up there and then they're playing with their friends as well, that's the number one way you can guarantee they're going to come back at under 10s. If they're not part of a team, it's quite simply you make them feel really happy and really enjoy the session. And how do they really enjoy the session? Well, you play a lot of games. You do a lot of shooting, do a lot of dribbling. You don't stand them on the baseline and do defensive slides for half an hour. You make it fun, and you engage with them as well, and you try and I think dealing with parents is huge as well. I think the advantage of being older now, I'm 44 with kids of my own, and having run football teams, I think dealing with parents and empathising with parents, one of the big things which I'm trying to say to all the coaches is, we get sign-ups, we get an email through saying they've registered for a taster session. Ring them, don't just email, say we'll see you. Call them and do a fact find about the child. Is he nervous? Because it's a session with 25 kids, and if you come in at 5:05, that could be the end of his basketball life. Because that's an intimidating thing, to walk in with 25 basketballs bouncing, with kids you don't know. Where you from? What schools you go to? Who do you know that's already in the session? And if they say, oh, he's fine, he just goes himself, he cracks on, he doesn't care, no problem, not going to have any issues. But if it's a kid who's, whether he's autistic or whatever, or ADHD or anything like that, you've got to know about who's coming in, and you've got to know early doors to greet them, get down on their level. It's the old school stuff. Get on your knee. Don't stand up and talk to them when they're age 6. Get down on their level. And usually I'll say things like, which basketball do you want? Because they're looking around nervous, and I'll have a yellow one and I'll have a red one. Which one do you want? You can't have the red one, that's mine. So which one do you want? But I want the red one. Okay, you can have the red one. But that's mine, so I'm going to steal it off you. And then all of a sudden you're chasing the kid. So all these little tricks of just keeping them happy, making sure at the end of the session you thank the players for working so hard, you congratulate the new ones. And the big point I like to make to my groups is, at the start, I'll always introduce the child that's just come in, and I'll say, this is Amanda, it's our first session. Everyone's been here for their first session before. We all know how it feels, whether Amanda is nervous or not. She shouldn't be nervous because she's a really good player. That's why she'll fit in. So I'm giving her a little side compliment without talking directly to her. And little things like that to just get into the psyche of the player to make them feel $1 million. Because if they can feel positive and confident, as long as you set the parameters of the session for them to achieve, and that's one thing I love about coaching basketball, you can't go wrong. If you've got small balls, size 3 or size 5, if you drop your hoops lower, and if you do enough shooting, they will make lots of shots. And if a kid makes lots of shots, he'll come back. He or she'll come back. Like, it's not difficult to retain kids. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot has to go wrong for the kid to say, I don't want to come back. This is the most inclusive environment. And as long as you can look after them from the moment they've come in to the moment they leave, and they're happy when they come in, they're happy when they leave, or they're maybe not happy when they come in, but they're certainly happy when they leave. And there's obviously things like dealing with they might get hit by the ball, so how do you deal with that, and different strategies for that. And
How do you deal with that? Because that's probably a common thing.
so if you get hit by, this is the issue. If you do shoot with a ball each, you increase the risk of getting hit. So you have to have lots of hoops. You have to stagger it in a certain way where maybe I'll say before you score, you need to do a dribble move. Straight away now, you've got 30 kids doing the dribble move, so they're going to end up shooting at different times. You've got to put a cone over there if you score, which takes them away from the traffic. So you're reducing the traffic in your basket. And if you do get hit by a ball, generally speaking, as long as the hoop isn't 10 feet and the ball is in a size 7, it's not going to hurt too much. It's just a case of managing it. So it depends on what's happened, really. Usually it'll be, you're tough though, aren't you? You're a tough kid though, aren't you? I mean, they can't say no to that. Well, they're going to say, no, I'm not. So it's just tricks of the mind, yeah? I know you got hit in the face, but usually I count to 10. And they'll start counting to 10. I'll say, no, in German, I don't speak German. I say, okay, well, do it in French. I don't speak French. And by the end of going through 4 or 5 languages that I don't speak, they realise their nose doesn't hurt anymore. And then go and shoot. So
That's brilliant.
all that stuff.
Yeah. Where do you pick that up? Like, just that kind of...
Doing the job, honestly. Doing the job. Once your numbers grow, it's literally learning on the job. But I've never had an ethos of, standing in line with the ball between 6 of yous. All that stuff that you see, keep them on the move and just manage the little issues when they happen. It's really just on the fly, basically. And that's where you have to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I love those little...
Distraction techniques.
Yeah, and I love those little languages pieces you've taken for like even not specifically the 5 different languages, but the forms of communication you have with them. Like where did you pick that up? Is that just again on the job?
No, I just made it up. Everything I've done, pretty much, I've just thought of on the job. I've just randomly done it, and then you do it again if it works. As simple as that. I haven't really done a conference or anything like that.
I'd have to bring you over now and do it. There you go.
I'd be delighted. Yeah, I love it.
I just want to quickly ask about the basketball bingo. Like, let's say if I was to recreate that as a coach, is that just a whiteboard and does the kids write it? Do you write it? Like, what way does it?
So you would probably write it, but you would just field ideas. You would have 12 sections or 6 sections, depending on their level. You can't do reverse layups with 5-year-olds, obviously, but like, yeah, you just have the kids do it. And it might be, some are technical related, some might be game related. In terms of, one of them we did a while ago was, we're going to put a shot clock in. I got like a boxing timer on my laptop. Sorry, on my tablet. I had it kind of mounted next to the court. And I was like, you can't shoot until the last 6 seconds of the shot clock. That's one of the conditions. So we've got 24 seconds on the shot clock. Can you move the ball, retain the ball, protect the ball, and then last 6 seconds, last 10 seconds, come alive and make your move? It's quite basketball specific. So, but yeah, the kids give you the ideas and you just go with them, and then you review with the kids, like, what did you think of that? What was hard about that? Because the big thing, they're the ones doing it. So we have this thing of, you've got to do that, you've got to do this, you know, but they're the ones doing it. So the big question for me is, how did that feel? So the big one is shooting. I mean, I think shooting is the one which took about 2 years to really work out how best to coach it to certain age groups, because you've got all the bad habits. And I prefer coaching shooting by telling them what not to do first. So I take away the things you shouldn't do, because then they don't even try them because they've been told not to try them. For example, ball above the head, you know, like a throw-in or like a line out in rugby. They'll do that because by putting the ball above the head, it's closer to the hoop. So they're in their head, they're thinking, well, the ball's closer. But in reality, you're losing the leverage of the elbow and the wrist. So you're not getting the ball up to the hoop and you're off balance. So that one's out the door. I always say to them, the ball isn't a parrot, so it doesn't belong on your shoulder. You know, is this a parrot? No, it's a basketball. Okay, well, don't put it on your shoulder. Chicken wings, when you've got the ball in the middle and your elbows are sticking out, like the old school chest pass, which we were taught wrongly in primary school. Still winds me up, that teacher still didn't say that's how you throw a chest pass, by sticking your elbows out. That one's fraught with problems because which one is the driver? And I use the car analogy. So the basketball's a steering wheel. You can't have and your shooting hand is driving the car, and your non-shooting hand is controlling the gear stick. You know, so I'm basically trying to say the direction has to come from. I'm doing all the actions. It's a podcast. I don't know why I'm bothering. I could just have behind them, but you basically have to have your elbow, and then once they've taken out all of the things which they know they shouldn't do, which are going to be detrimental and not conducive to a real game, because you're not going to jump stop and then put it above your head. You're going to shoot from where you pick it up and adjust that way. Then it becomes easier to hone it. Spread your fingers, basketball, hand in the middle of the ball. And I like to use the logo of the ball, because every basketball's got, like, whether it's Kipster, whether it's Spalding, Moulton, whatever it is, use the word, because the word is always directly center of the ball. So when you're practicing, can you get your little finger through the middle of the word? Can you get your wrist back like you carried a tray of drinks? Can you get your elbow under the wrist? And can you bring it through that way? And where does the strength come from? And they'll say everything but the legs. They will say everything but the legs. They'll say the ears before they say the legs, because they don't relate legs to providing strength for the shot. The reality is, you kind of have to be a duck on the water, where your legs are doing a lot of the work and your upper body is quite rigid on your shots once you've got into your form. So it's analogies like that to make them think about, you know, less is more. Just gather it, get your hands in the correct position. And I've got year one's reception kids who can shoot properly. So I don't have to worry about their form moving forward. The hands will get bigger, the ball will get bigger, the hoops will get taller, but their form is there and they're picking it up properly as well. So that for me is success, really. Because now I can just work on, okay, can you now shoot off the dribble? Can you shoot off your offhand? Can you be creative with your shot? Can we do some floaters? Yeah. That was a long answer.
No.
And I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
I am as well, but I love the way it's still the visual.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Give them an image. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steering wheel.
Yeah, completely.
Steering wheel works because a lot of them will shoot, but the ball will be right up against their chest. What happens then? The elbow comes out to the side of the body because it's got nowhere else to go. So if you have the steering wheel as a vision, okay, I know the ball's got to be about 12, 18 inches away from my chest. Now, how do I get the ball up there? Well, I'm going to have to bend my knees. I'm going to have to tuck my elbow underneath, and I'm going to have to carry the tray of drinks or the tray of snacks. I usually say with the kids. So, what happens if my elbow comes out? The drinks are going to spill everywhere. The Skittles going to go everywhere. Giving them the visual cues to really simplify the shot. And then once you've got that, as long as the basketball's the correct size, it can't go wrong because it becomes a smooth follow-through. Ian McLeod has made all of our year 6 and 7 kids go down to 8 feet because that's the European model. And it was met with opposition by quite a few players, which was bizarre because I think they took it as a slight upon their abilities that, no, I'm big enough to shoot on 10 foot. Players will do that. Like, the kids will do that. They'll be like, I don't need to shoot in the low feet. But all of a sudden, because he's lowered the hoops now, the shooting form's better. We're finishing left hand, we're finishing off hand, we're finishing with reverses. We're doing things we just couldn't do when it was at 10 feet. So we're tweaking the conditions to suit technique rather than the other way around.
Yeah, brilliant. How do you balance then? Because something I'm fascinated with is improving an individual in a team setup and improving like an individual's skill set really. How do you balance that when you've got 25 kids bouncing the ball and you're trying to teach all of them to shoot properly? But I love the way you've eliminated all the wrong things already, and then they'll find, still within the flair thing, they'll find their way into the shot. How do you improve? Let's say I'm in the session and there's 4 other kids like me that aren't shooting properly. How do you then improve me as the individual?
There's not often I would take 4 or 5 of the ones that aren't doing it properly out. The answer is for me to make sure they come back and to keep reinforcing the good habits and the good technique. I think we've got this thing with basketball, and it was the same when I took goalkeeping on. I was still a young coach then. Someone wasn't striking the ball properly, I'd immediately try and change it. Kick it 100 times. This is what you got to do. But his strike was going to the same place as mine. So that it reached a stage where I was like, do I really need to just drill this into them? Or can I just drip feed the information? You would take them out. It would always just be correct default, literally, and reinforce it and diagnose why you've missed. And usually, not why you've missed, but why you've missed so much. Because if you miss a shot with good form, I'm happy. I always say to the kids, I'd rather miss with good form than score with bad form, because it's not replicable in the game. So it's just repetition, and reinforcing the points, getting them consistently looking to line a shoulder up to the hoop, feet shoulder width apart, all of the good things, all the good technical information. And if one is particularly struggling, then we've got enough coaches at the club to take them out. But they don't want to be taken out a lot of the time. They're there with their friends. You've got a risk. You sometimes have to be careful of singling people out. So can you find different ways to get it across to them without taking them out away from the exercise, because then they feel self-conscious. My hunch for Lonzo Ball was he probably had a size 7 from the age of 9, because my Lonzo's so special, he doesn't need a size 5. Seriously. Kenny Smith, played in the 90s for the Houston Rockets, he's always said it. He was shooting on stupidly high hoops with a big basketball. So when you see his shot, he twists his hand at the last minute to compensate. It goes in because it works. Don't get me wrong, people have got different ways of making things work. But our job is to try and guide them, isn't it, towards the right way. And when you dribble, if you take dribbling and you compare it to the teachings of shooting, dribbling happens so much more naturally with the soft fingers, with the way you bounce. Pretty much after the first 2 weeks of the under-6s training, they've stopped slapping the ball. Where your fingers are rigid and flat and you use the palm. So dribbling's much quicker because it's like, once you've got it, you've got it. The shooting thing, the hardest thing is correcting bad form, especially when they're older. It's nigh on impossible to get them to change their form. And that's where people like Anthony Reid come in with the academy and work with them, and that's where it's more individual. So can I put great form into them at a young age, so when to come to the academy at age 14 and doesn't have to worry about it. The kids under 8s and 10s, you know, they are sponges and they are fantastic at, they know the sessions are good without being big-headed. You know, we've got huge intake that keep coming back, so we're doing something right. So they know the sessions are really good, so they trust that if I focus and it's working, you've got that trust straight away. People don't shoot with delivery bad. Ultimately, you lower the hoop, you know, because if they really can't get there, more often than not, it's a strength thing. Why is it on the shoulder? Well, the hoop's too high. Now and again, I'll take, at the end of the session, in fact, this is something I do quite a lot. I picked it up off somebody else, actually. You bring the parent over, they've got a smartphone. I'll put them in the correct form, and I'll have a sideways view, and I'll have them without the ball, and then I'll put the ball in, and they'll hold that position, so the knees are spot on, knees level with the edge of the toes, soft knees, feet shoulder width apart and everything, or a little bit narrower, elbow and knees, all of those things, and we'll put them in position. We'll say to the parent, photograph it, put it on his bedroom wall, print it out 10 by 6, put it on his wall so he's looking at that, so he knows. And you get to the stage with the kids where they can diagnose why they've missed, and that's when you've cracked it. Why did you miss right there? Why did you shoot an air ball? I didn't get my legs into the shot. Why did you miss right? Ball was on my shoulder. You know, why did you overshoot? When I wound up too much, I bent my knees too much, you know. The ball was too low. So they start recognising, depending on how they've missed, why they've missed that way. The rotation of the ball is a big one I'm really emphasising at the moment. Flicking through the ball at the shot. Bend and extend, you know, all these little phrases to make them think, okay, I've shot the ball, but can I finish with the gooseneck? I'll always send them on the WhatsApp groups. I'll send them images like Michael Jordan's game winner in '98, where he holds his form, because the timeout previously, coach had said, you're not getting your legs into the shot, you're not following through enough with your wrist. So that's the greatest player, in my opinion, of all time, certainly the greatest scorer of all time, who is technically doing the wrong thing. So he hit that game winner against the Jazz, and I was 21 years old or 20 years old, up in 4 o'clock in the morning, jumping around my bedroom. I remember it as if it was yesterday. And he held his form. And that's being made into a canvas. It was that famous last shot photo. And I send that to the parents. I put things like that in the WhatsApp group. Look at the greatest player of all time, still doing the fundamentals. A lot of them will catch it with one hand and go straight into their dribble. That's a common one. So the ball will come in a game situation. They just want to bounce it straight away, so they'll gather with one hand. That's fine in professional basketball. It happens a lot because it gets you going quicker. But at that age, when they're 8, 9, 10, and they haven't got quite the size of the hands to do it, I'll always say, you know, how many hands does LeBron James use to catch a ball? And they'll say 2. So are you better than LeBron James? You will be if you stick with us, but you're not right now. Getting them to think. Fundamentals, keep the game simple, secure the ball, rip through, rather than gather off a dribble and then be out of control.
Yeah. I love the way it goes back to that retention thing. Sorry, if you have to go, let me know.
No, it's all. I'm just waiting for someone to walk in and tell us to stop. I'm having a time of my life.
I like the way you use the picture thing, and to keep kids and retain kids and help them improve. It's all about showing them their progression and showing them how it relates to a senior player, for example. And I've used that in the past, but there was a really good tweet, a fantastic coach in Ireland, Philip Kerr, and he put out a tweet about how at the start of the training session, and we were talking before about free play, is they have printouts of elite football players and like pictures, and they give the kids maybe groups of 3, let them go with their friends, you know, let them talk, but it's like, replicate that for me. Replicate, like you were saying, replicate Michael Jordan's shot, make sure you're getting that follow through. And again, it's all the imagery. It brings them back to, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And if I can see it, I'm more likely to do it.
100%. If you look at Steph Curry, for me, I think it's undisputed now, he's the greatest shooter of all time. When the way he changed things, but he's big on that movement from the hip and the pickup, isn't he? And getting into his shot that way. So, like, yeah, using those positive role models. And the Eagles players as well are huge, you know, like speaking to them about the game. Who's your favourite player? Why is he your favourite player? What does he do that you love? and get them to think rather than just say he's my favourite player, because people usually love Fletch because it's Fletch. Or Fab, because Fab, yeah, Darius has been here longer in this building, so Darius, he won't thank us for saying that if he's listening. But no, but actually, why do you love that player? What does he do that you love? Give me one move he did on Friday that you looked at and went, yeah, I love that. And if they're 9 years old and they come out with like spin move, left hand finish, I'm like, you'll do for me. You know, you're now talking in basketball terminology, and it's a big thing Ian was pushing the other day. We do CPD every 2 Wednesdays, and it's getting them talking like basketball players. It's what I said before about players, the kids that play basketball and basketball players. Can they speak in our language, and can we speak in our language when we're talking with them? Maybe not 6 and 7, but as you approach year 4, 5, 6, are you understanding what a drop step is? You know, are you understanding the phraseology that we're using to really get them thinking about that?
And is that, how do you implement that with the kids? Is that, or like when the language bit of turning a kid from a plays basketball into a basketball player, how do you bridge that gap? Let's say I come in and I don't have the terminology, I'm not from a basketball background, my parents don't play, you know, I don't maybe watch basketball, how do that first step and help them develop that vocabulary?
We have to give them the correct vocabulary in training. We have to use it ourselves, and it catches on. It's not like a thing. I'm going to go in there today and I'm going to teach you these 10 phrases, but if you're constantly using those phrases,
they'll pick it up.
They'll pick it up, absolutely, just like anything. Just consistency with your coaching for me. Like, and especially in gameplay. So the common mistakes they'll make, it's very hard being a coach of my club, because if I look across, or a volunteer who's refereeing one of the games, because we've got 4 matches going on at the same time, usually half court. Don't often play full court, to be fair. I play a lot half court. And if I see someone not pass the ball ahead, particularly when you play full court, actually, you know, if you don't pass the ball ahead, it's a turnover. So I'm going to blow the whistle and turn the ball over, because and then you do your Q&A. So it's all about guided discovery. It's the football concept again, going back to my younger coaching days. Guided discovery. The old school football model was stop, correct the fault, show a demo, get back out. But you haven't tested their understanding. And if you can't check for that knowledge, you're going to just keep go back in and do it. It's like how kids learn, isn't it? Like, at some point I've got to give you the knowledge. So scenarios like where we're trying to encourage the right questions as well. Who was in front of you when you had the ball in transition? I don't know. Why don't you know? I didn't look up. Great, what should you do next time? Look ahead. If they have seen who was in front of them, because if they give me the answer, who was in front of you? Amelia. I'm keep talking about Amelia because I was told my dad last night, sorry. First name. Amelia was in front of me. Why didn't you pass to her? I didn't see her. You did. You just told her that she was the one that was in front of you, so you saw her. Why didn't you pass it? And eventually, I actually am quite strict with them in that I'll insist on an honest answer. And I'll be like, no, come on, give me the real reason. You're not going to get in trouble. Why you didn't pass the ball? And it'll always be, I wanted to score. It's like, that's fine. You're 8 years old, you wanted to score. But what colour bib are you wearing? Or what colour top are you wearing? Red. Or what colour is Amelia wearing? Red. Great. So that means you can pass to her. Because the scoreboard that we're using, if we were using one, doesn't have your names on. It's not going to be like Zach's got 10 points and Amelia's got 4. It's not competition. You're playing on the same team. And it goes by what you're saying, reward the assist, which I'm going to take away from this, definitely. So Q&A, guided discovery, checking their knowledge, having that dialogue with them. Why didn't you pass ahead? Or you know, why did you dribble in the corner? Because they'll always dribble in the corner, because the players don't fill the corners enough. So youngsters don't fill corners because they're thinking straight lines, the basket's there, I want the ball. So they'll be drawn to the ball. So the big condition we're doing at the moment is the ball has got to go into one of the corners before you score. It might come back out, it might be a shot from the corner, it might be a baseline drive. But the players now running ahead and filling the corners. And if you fill in the corners, we're happy, because now there's space to operate and you can drive, you can dish. It's not everyone facing the ball. So, but when you don't fill the corners, the player on the ball who can't quite get to the hoop because he's 8 and he likes dribbling, don't ever forget that. Oh, they love dribbling. Where's the space? Oh, there's a big space in the corner. So they'll go to the corner and they'll dribble and they get trapped. And I always say to them, okay, how many defenders can you see? And they'll say, well, one, he's marking us. So no, there's two more. Where's the other two defenders? And you'll put them in positions, so there's not two more human defenders, but what you end up getting out from them is the baseline and the sideline. So you are trapping yourself, baseline, sideline, and you've got the problem of this guy that wants the ball off you. So getting those questions out is huge.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and getting them to give you the answers.
Brilliant. I love the guided discovery. I was talking to a coach I was coaching with last year, and he had a great kind of phrase. It was 2 stars and a wish. So 2 things he did well, but Amelia, I wish you could do this. No, it wasn't the phraseology of wish.
Right.
He didn't say wish, but it was like, you did that really well, and you did that really well, but next time just try that. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know where he got it from, but it's kind of like that.
2 stars and a wish.
2 stars and a wish. There you go. It's kind of like this. It's similar to the sandwich approach.
Yeah.
Where you say, give him a compliment, give him something to work on, then compliment again. But I prefer the kind of 2 stars and a wish. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the phrase. Maybe it's just the knowledge.
Things come in threes, don't it?
Yeah,
so
completely. Yeah, it's power through.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And have you noticed a difference? It's come up a lot in terms of coaching boys versus girls. What are your observations from it? Do you coach them differently? What do you think?
Well, I did my dissertation on girls' coaching behaviours. So the preferred coaching behaviours of girls, as my dissertation showed, which was consistent with the research before, is that girls prefer to be responsible for the decision making. They prefer to ask more questions. They don't like being shouted at. They don't like being coached by a command style. They prefer to be left alone to work it out for themselves. Boys are more accustomed to and more used to the command approach. You tell me how to do it, I'll do it. So that comes into it, where I do coach them differently, usually, but not massively differently. But I just have a little bit more empathy and a little bit more understanding for the self-conscious factor. So if I bring there's a girl last see Georgia out for a shooting exercise, and I'm drilling the technique and I'm doing repeat feedback, which is obviously shot, no, do this better. They're gonna get self-conscious and they're gonna feel like this is too much. So asking them and giving them the space to develop, and then they'll come ask you for the answers. The boys is a bit different. It's a bit more automatically, really. Whether it should be different, I don't know. Whether it's better to just have that approach based on age and stage as opposed to gender. But I think and I think that the big thing is they want to play together usually. So don't fight that. I've got like 10 girls in one session, and when they play, they'll play half court or they'll play 2v2s, and I'll mix them sometimes because they play against boys on the weekend. But usually, the social side is probably more important to them at that stage as year 4 or 5. But it does depend on the individual. Obviously, you get some girls who are just machines that just want to play and progress. So it does depend on the individuals. But yeah, I like to keep them together and make sure that we take all 4 corners of the model, really, which is obviously the social side is important as well. Do you think they learn differently?
I don't think they learn differently. I think they respond differently.
Yeah,
I think with the boys, it's very much they'll kind of, and I could be wrong, I haven't coached boys a lot, but they'll run through a brick wall and they won't ask why. Whereas the girls would be like, well, why am I doing that? And they'll want to understand. And I was talking to the same coach again. He was saying before, if you were trying to develop a concept and bring something in, boy, you better have known what you were doing and why you were doing it, because they were going to ask, and you made your answer ready. Whereas maybe I'm wrong with the boys, but they'd be less likely to ask you why.
Less likely to ask.
They'll just do it.
100%. That's exactly what I found. They'll ask more questions. They'll want to know the rationale behind the decision as well. Boys will never ask the rationale. So if I say, okay guys, we're going 3v3, this is the condition, more likely if someone is going to say, why are we doing that condition, why are we doing that, that will generally be one of the girls who not pick fault. And I think you've got to leave your ego at the door as well as a coach, and you've got to not humour them, but you've got to accommodate them and go, this is why, but I'll always follow it with, what do you think we could do it differently? And then if they say yes, do it. They say it might not be better for the session, but what's better? A session which maybe doesn't go as well in terms of what you had in mind, or the ownership, which they're going to respect. Yeah. It's player-centered, isn't it? It's got to be player-centered, because without them, I don't have a job. Without them, we don't have a club. So we have to make sure they are happy, and it would never go the other way because once you've given them that license and once you've given them that autonomy, they're happy, they're satisfied. They're probably not going to pester you much more. But if you knock it back, the impact of that could be more far-reaching.
And I think when you give them the ownership, they'll kind of go back to, it was an episode with Donny Fox, I'll send it to you, but kind of like that kind of rescue dog mentality is if you give them a bit of love, they'll always, they'll be loyal. They'll be so loyal to you, and they'll, if you empower the player, if you're the first person to empower the player, and I've been lucky to be maybe in situations like that, even though I'm not coaching them now, they'll always have that loyalty to you.
Sean Dyche's comment about Kieran Trippier. When Trippier won the Spanish League with Atletico Madrid and he FaceTimed them from the pitch during the celebrations, he last played for him probably 10 years earlier. That meant more to Dyche than anything. So, yeah, building those relationships. And that's why I love the high performance podcast stuff and the other stuff that's out there. And I can't wait to listen to some of the stuff you're doing as well. Is we need to think of them more like children, because they are, what I mean?
Yeah.
Sounds like so.
People first, players second. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And me gripe with football, this isn't having to go with volunteers, but the scale of football dictates that you end up with people in charge of kids who should not be in charge of kids. And I don't mean that they're dodgy individuals.
Yeah, I know the context you're talking about, yeah.
But basically, I'm going to make every decision for them. I'm going to shout at them. I'm going to tell them what to do. I'm going to put my best 7 on the pitch at the start, no matter what, every week. So after 3 weeks, they know they're not as good. I always say to my coaches, rotate you 4. Do not let the kids know, even if they know who the best players are. Do not let them get into that comfort zone of, where you're acknowledging it. You don't need to acknowledge it. Just it's usually who finishes the game, not who starts the game. Anyway, but it's more about the child, and it's about rooting for the underdog. I hugely root for the underdog. If I'm in schools,
I do as well.
Yeah, if I'm in schools and I've got a year 4 kid, it's usually year 4, year 3, because I've had 2 years of formative development under a coach like the one I've just described, football, who's pressuring them, shouting at them, on that case all the time, not letting them breathe, not letting them just express themselves and play consequence-free, which is the most important thing you can do with kids, making every decision for them. If you look at that kid in the year 3, year 4 environment at school, when you do a shooting game, they will be the one that will probably break the rules if they're not winning, or if they do win, they'll brag about it. And I always say to those kids, what football teams you play for, and I guarantee every time they'll say the name of the football team. I never get that wrong. You know who the footballers are. It's not always by the haircuts. That's always a giveaway. If they've got a top knot, they play for a football team, generally speaking. But I'll always say, okay, so what football team do you play for? And I'll just totally throw them. And they'll tell us, and I'll say, okay, I understand why you're treating this game like a World Cup final. I said, but, at the end of the day, did you know you travelled on 4 out of 10 those shots? So really, you won the game, but if I was following the rules correctly, I would have took 4 points off you. Or if they win, we'll win, or if they big themselves up, it's my job, I think, to bring them down a little bit, because they're in that class every day, dominating PE every single day, and the classmates are a bit suppressed by it. So if we could have an external coach come in and put them in that place in a nice way, in a compassionate way, and then by the end give them some sugar, get them on board. It was about what I said before. Can you make them better? And admit to them, you're a really good player, but you know how they haven't touched the ball much. Can you get them involved? And they'll always go yes, because you've accepted that you know they're a good player. You're not fighting their ability, you're just harnessing it. So when it comes to the underdog, which is usually the child who's maybe a bit overweight, maybe socially awkward, they can make a couple of jump shots in PE. They are my target. They are my mission. And I'll make a point of saying to them at the end of the session, player of the session was Reese. And you look at it like, what? I got acknowledged in PE. That's never happened before. And then it's teacher, email to the teacher. Can you get this letter back to their parents? Tell them we're coming along with the club. And so 50% of my club is probably made up of those kids who were giving them an entry in the sport. We're giving them a chance for sport. And because of the sessions we deliver, how we deliver them, the inclusive nature, the lower baskets, the way we tweak the conditions, the way we keep ability levels together, they'll achieve and they'll grow in confidence. And I got an email 3 years ago from a parent. He's now one of our best players. Going through all sorts of stuff at schoolwork, concentration, lost his dad to cancer. And they got an email through basketball's changed our lives, not just his life, our lives. And they're they don't happen very often, but when that does happen, it's like the Daesh thing. It's like, that's what matters. We've connected with people on a real level, and we've set them on the right path. That's why I consider this job a huge privilege to do, really. I would do it for free if truth be told. Who didn't tell me, boss, that?
And I know the context you were saying about having the wrong people in charge of kids. It came up in an episode, can't remember who it was, but it was about how we have the best coaches at the elite level when the best coaches should be at the kids, and should be teaching the kids from a young age. Your age,
the academy is doing now. They've got specialists. Guy called Ben, and I'm struggling to remember his surname. Ben Carr, fantastic with the younger ones. Sunderland, Newcastle, I think, tried to headhunt them, and I think he went back or something. But total specialist, age and stage specialist. Because what is best? I don't like the word best. What is best really? It's not about best, because it's just, best is so subjective. For me, it's about appropriate, and it's about the right personality for that age group and for that type of environment. And that's true of life, isn't it? If I get a plumber out and an electrician rocks up and tries messing with the pipes, I'm like, hold on, you're not right for the job. But in sport, we kind of go, look, in football especially, we need you. We've got 40 kids and they all need teams. You. And that is a challenge in basketball as well. But what I've found we do, which generally speaking, I don't want to hammer football. I love football. I've been involved all my life. And it is tricky with the vast skill of the vast numbers. But what we will always do is I'll say to parents, and we saw this the other day, I need parents to run these teams. I've got 3 teams. We can't run them without you guys. So we make them feel like it's not like it is, but like it's important. We can't run them without you because you're essential. That you're going to go through with the team. And they'll always say, well, I don't know anything about basketball. And it's like another 10s team. And I'll say, brilliant, we're just what we're looking for. Just what we're looking for. And they'll laugh, they'll think I'm joking. And I mean, no, you're just what we're looking for. Because all I want from you, can you tie the laces when they need tied? Can you make sure they don't spill their drinks bottles? Can you encourage them? Can you not show signs of frustration when the opposition score, when a mistake is made? So they don't look over and see you angry, because that'll ruin a kid. My brother told me that it was a ladies' game. I used to coach his now wife and my ex-wife in the same team. And there was this player I kept missing chances. Must have 5 or 6 great chances in the game. Wouldn't go in for it. And every time I'm reacting, I was young, I was 25, I'm throwing my pen on the floor and I'm frustrated. And he emailed me actually. I'll never forget it. And he emailed and said a few things about the team. And he haven't done it before or since. But he said, when you were doing that, she was looking across. And that really told me the power of how your reactions can impact the players. You've got to be Mr. Consistent, not too happy when they win, not too down when they lose. So my point of the basketball parents was just be a good support network. Just be there, encourage, create the right environment. Your knowledge, I'll do the coaching. A lot of them don't even help out in training. They just look after them on match days, because at that stage we just want the right environment. And the league is great for that, because it's like you can't shout from the stands. You can't shout too much from the sideline. Martin's very good with that. If the coaches are over shouting, then he'll stop it. Because what these people don't realise is you're not only hurting your team because you're taking away the decisions that they need to make. The kids need to find out for themselves by trying it. But you're creating the wrong environment for the other team. So a coach that shouts is more detrimental, I think, to the opposite team, because they're now playing in a pressure cooker environment, like a bear pit type of thing environment. So it affects them as well. The coaches, I think, shouting onto the court is a good idea. I get really frustrated when I see it. It's like what Daesh said. We don't shout at them when they learn how to read or write. So why do we do it when they're playing sport? For me, that's the mantra. So, yeah, don't worry about the scoreboard. Don't make your decisions based on the scoreboard. Don't make your decisions based on anything other than, have you got equal minutes? Because guess what? They all pay the same. Everyone pays the same fees. So why should he get 4 minutes and he gets 16 minutes? We're wrestling with this still now. Because you've got that instinct in you, I want to win. Whereas really winning is, can I get the ball up a level? How's that going to happen? Well, I have to play.
Yeah. And there's a great video I saw on Twitter. it was a study done in the States, and it was all the parents went down to the session. I don't know the whole background of it, but my understanding of it was all the parents went to the kids' training session, and all the parents went to play the match, and all the kids mimicked what they did. Brilliant. I'll send you the link if I can find it. It was just brilliant. And what I like, when your instinct is to win, and there was a great analogy I took from a book with a football player, and he got it from a performance coach, and he was like, the analogy for win is what's important now. So it's like, what are we here to win? But like, what's
the acronym.
That was the acronym. Yeah, that's right. What's important now, and what's important, like winning here. I suppose maybe it's not winning the league on a Saturday morning at under 8s. It's what's important now. It's developing into the future of the Eagles.
Yeah, so we don't keep league tables. This is the funniest thing. And FA stopped keeping league tables like up to under 10s, maybe. And then they finally published the points of the goals and everything. But you would get parents who would keep their own league table. They would find out what all the other scores were and manufacture a league table and post it on the social media. And then turn up on the final week of the under 8 season. Put an academy kid in Division 3. Never forget this. Batter everybody. Turn up at the final week of under 8 block of games, maybe 2 months worth of football, with a huge batter, league champions, when there wasn't even a league. You know, and it's like, if you can remove adults from kids' sport, you know, to certainly those types of situations, it'd be a far better place. Give them that space and just enjoy watching them, because as someone who's got a 9-year-old now, 16-year-old, 14-year-old, you know, those are special moments when you're watching them learn a game and be with their teammates. So the thought that I'm going to allow some angry middle-aged guy, I hate to conform to stereotypes, but I'm painting the picture, who's frustrated with, hates his job, gets up on a Saturday, he does a level 1 course, and then puts it on the bookshelf and says, that's me, done with me learning. Barking at the kids to create the wrong environment, for the kids to leave the team, for the parents to get into politics. All of those lessons from that environment I've really used for my basketball club to make sure that we don't fall in that trap. And we bring in the right coaches. And if now and again coaches have been too vocal, and it's about sitting down with them, being honest, and saying, this is not aligned with my philosophy, so it's not sustainable. So just enjoy being a parent. I don't say you're not coaching anymore. I just say, just enjoy being a parent. Let someone else do it. Maybe you're better when they're 14. Maybe your style will be great when they're 14. But when they're 7, and you're barking at them a pass ahead, and you're getting frustrated when we lose, no, man, just swallow it, give somebody else a go. And if you talk to them on that level, they're actually all right with it, you know, because usually they're not enjoying it. So actually, if I can take that pressure off you, you can just enjoy being a kid and enjoy being a parent and watching your kid. Because what you do know is, of course, those coaches, usually, they're the ones that'll be in the car on the way there, the car on the way back, you know, the night before, talking to the kid about it, and he just wants to play, man. Like, let him play. So when I implement this, actually, I let the kids play a week, which is like, coaches can't say anything. You know, so 1 week out of so many, we're just going to have a total silence. The players are in the timeouts, and the coaches don't shout onto the court. We used to have 2 games, but because of the busyness of the league, we've had to go with 1. We tried that when we had 2 games. I would always say to the coaches at my club, this week, game 1 or game 2, maybe choose which is the easier game. So the kids might need some guidance. I'm not saying silence is the answer all the time. They do need learning cues, but they don't need commentary. You know, there's a difference. Making decisions for them and telling them where to pass, when to dribble, is wrong, because they're not going to get better. Learning cues, though, which you've worked on in training, which can trigger something in them, absolutely brilliant. But just playing the game for them like you're controlling them on the Xbox is wrong. So I'd say to them, game 1, be totally silent. Game 2, you can speak. And it was brilliant. And we did a little focus group with the kids. What did you think? What did you prefer? Did you prefer the silence, or did you prefer that? A few of them said they preferred having guidance, which is obviously great. A lot of them preferred total silence, and then you can hear the noise of kids shouting and not adults shouting. Isn't that a wonderful concept? Because they're the ones that are playing. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to hear if he's told us to pick up his player, or give a little technical instruction. Pass it ahead next time. I was open. I want to hear that stuff, and I can't hear it if I've got an emotional parent or volunteer dominating the environment.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I love that. When you're working with a player or with a team, maybe more so with a group of players, how do you measure success working with kids at that age? How do you I always find how do you measure success when it's at developmental ages?
My opinion, especially with the responsibility to grow the clubs, which is my primary focus, is retention. Retention is success, isn't it? We're keeping them in the sport. We're keeping them engaged. If they keep coming back, they must be happy. And the parent must be happy, which is very important. Don't underestimate the importance of that. I actually call them customers, not parents. Parents is something which is used often quite derogatory. Bloody parents. If you call them customers, it keeps your mind right. They're customers. We've got to treat them with respect. And the customer's usually right, to be fair. So that you can't go wrong if you do that, because you're then respecting their importance in the process. True success, I guess, would be improving the level, isn't it? I mean, it's improving the level of player. It's improving the standard of the advanced development groups we're running. And how many can we progress on to play through the academy? How many of my club, the club I'm working with, will end up reaching the top table, which is to represent the Eagles Academy, and then beyond. But I love the job because once you get up to that development group stage, the specialist work is with Anthony Reid, who's fantastic, and with Ian, in the program that they're implementing here. And it's we've done they'll still play for my club while they're trying for the academy, but if they reach that stage, I've done my job. So who's next in the conveyor belt, and we can work through and improve them and make sure they're happy, make sure they stay in the game. And the simple answer really, are they constantly enjoying it? Are they not? They're not having ups and downs. They're not having emotional ups and downs where 1 week they might quit, 1 week they're really buzzing. Can we get the players thinking it's the process, not the outcome, and put it in perspective? And get them just steady away, working on your game, no dramas, win, lose or draw, and create good people, ultimately. Create accountable, good teammates who respect each other, and eradicate any little issues which could be construed as maybe bullying or the little battles that you sometimes have to have. Can we teach them life lessons as well as through the vehicle of sport, which ultimately should be the goal of any coach, I think, working with younger ones. How can we use sport to guide you and teach you all those important lessons?
What do you think of underage teams in terms of, there's kind of this argument as well in Irish basketball of keeping score, where it's you don't keep score because then everyone's a winner and everyone gets a medal, and you've got kids coming off the court. Yeah, what do you think of it?
Well, you need to keep score because otherwise...
They ask you anyway, is what I find.
In training, I lose my temper. I don't throw things around like the 25-year-old me on the football sideline. But if I do a shooting drill, this first attempt, I always stop it halfway through. And I stop it for two reasons. I change the condition. So I'll introduce, dribble off your offhand and pull up. Now I'll change it into a little dribble move or whatever. I'll always just stop and change the condition. But then the second reason will be, what's the score? How many have you got? And if they say they don't know, I have a go at them. What we're doing here then? Why are we here? Why are you training? We're doing first to 10. I told you it was first to 10. You mustn't want to win. Do you not want to win? So I don't go... I think you can wear both hats. I think you can make them accountable for the exercise, and the whole point of the exercise, which is to hit 10 shots first before anybody else. Which, by the way, is a good thing, because I've hit the shots and I've done it quicker. So I've achieved two things there, haven't I? I've done it quick, I hit my shots, and I've got a great analogy to talk to you about in a second. But also, I'm making them in charge of the session. So if they don't know, they're immediately back to zero. If one of them says 4, 6, back to zero. And then I go to the next team. Now, guarantee the next team might be the same. The team after that, no matter what they're on, they'll shout a number. 7! Really? I didn't see you hit 7 shots, are you sure? 7. Because they don't want to be down to zero, but it's making them realise the score matters. When we come with the league, and that's with year 2s and year 1s. I actually said to them last night. So what do you mean don't know the score? 1,000? Really? Okay, we've been shooting for 2 minutes, so I did the calculations. If you've scored 400 shots or whatever every so many seconds. But the league here, we started a recent thing where if you're up by more than 20, we turn the scoreboard around. So it still gets changed, but it's not there for the opposition to see. The scoreboard's still there, and they can still track the score, but it isn't a constant reminder of how inferior we are, you know.
Yeah. No, I like that. They do use that in Ireland as well. That's interesting.
Yeah, but the concept of like everyone's a winner. No, I'm sorry. You can have the best of both, but you can teach how to win and how to lose. I mean, that surely is what we're here for. Being a good winner or being a good loser, or a bad winner, bad loser. We need to see what these kids are like. Otherwise, how can we correct or encourage the right behaviour? So if you have a scenario where it's non-consequential and you don't put a target on your shooting, which you can do some shooting, guys, everything should be target driven for me. Everything should be first to 10, first to 20. And on that, actually, this is what I do in schools as well. Because you want to work in a good tempo, don't you, in training? Basketball is not a steady away, slow sport. You want to be in a good tempo. So I always say to them, and this always confuses them, some kids get it, some don't. If it's first to 20 and you've all scored the exact same percentage, you've all shot the exact same percentage, you've all shot 50%, you've made one, missed one, made one, missed one, it's first to 20, who wins? And they'll be like, well, it's a draw. I said, no, which team is going to win if you shoot the same percentage? Obviously the answer is the team that's won the quickest. Because if I can jack up 40 shots and the time it's taken you to shoot 20, I've got 20 before you, and you've got 10. So it's making them, asking those questions to think about. Because when you do a shooting drill, let's just say you've got 3 or 4 on the line. I don't usually go bigger than 3 or 4. I try and restrict the line because I want them to get lots of reps. You don't want a scenario where I'm going through the motions. You want to be, the second it's my turn, bosh, I'm exploding off my dribble. And I'm pulling up quickly. And I'm trying to make this game realistic as I can. Rather than go through the motions, dribble down, jack up a shot, dribble back slowly. You know, my brother always used to say basketball is a game of quick and slow. Very rarely are you with that mid-pace. And I took that in my coaching with the kids. Actually, he's right, though. You can't be quick without being slow. It's like a dichotomy, isn't it? I can't slow down unless I've been quick. So even at 8, I want to see a quick dribble. I want to see a sharp dribble, a quick move, an aggressive move. I like to say aggressive, and you know, as a word, even though it's got certain connotations maybe, but you know, really pound that ball and drive quickly. You know, like get to the shot quickly. Get to your shot quickly. And the quicker you get to your shot, the better. So it helps them in game times. But yeah, the scoring system. Some coaches don't do it. Some will just work on things, which is, I'm not saying that's wrong. I like the competition element. Yeah,
I do as well. I think it teaches kids as well that, because when they're older, it's like, they're not used to being competitive. Like, how do you, if you're, like, say for example, you get to elite level, you have to be able to close out a game, whether you're up or down.
100%.
And that has to be an instinct. Like,
so one of the conditions, again with the younger ones, which came up with in, I think it was at school one time, and these are all things which I'm sure loads of coaches do. I just had to learn on the job. You know, you can only count if you've hit 3 in a row. So if you're in a team, first 2 make it, you got to hit that third one. And obviously every game you tweak the order where they stand in the line to make it inclusive. So the third one isn't always letting them down. What if the third one can't shoot? You know, if they go first, they haven't cost anything. But if they go third and they miss it, so it's getting them thinking under pressure as well. Shooting with an element of pressure on it as much as you can, rather than just shoot for the shooting's sake.
Yeah. It's come up with every coach I've talked to, whether it's on the podcast or not, that a coach in their life has influenced them and inspired them. Who was that for you? Was there somebody that you can look back on and say they have inspired me to, or maybe, and I find sometimes the coach that didn't inspire me nearly drove me more, because it was like I learned how not to be a coach and how I didn't want to coach. Was there anyone that you can think of in a positive sense that has given you this kind of...
Do you know the person I'll come up with, I wouldn't say was a coach. He was just a wonderful man called Stan Lapsley. Had Parkinson's and passed away. I couldn't tell you when he passed away because he kind of drifted away from the club, obviously, with his condition. Stan was just... He run me under 13s to under 16s football team. We would go to Essex. I always remember this, the trip to Essex. He had like a partition wall, but it was still like there was still a gap between the ceiling and the top of that wall. And he slept in there, then we were in bunks. we didn't sleep all night, playing pranks with each other. You know, maybe we got 2 hours kip. Stan didn't say a word. Stan just let us be kids, you know what I mean? So Stan had every right to come out and say, get yourself to sleep, we've got a game in the morning, all this stuff. He just accepted it for what it is. He was so amazing. And he was so gently spoken. He was somebody who, now there's philosophies which we hear people talk about, the culture philosophy, player-centered. None of that literature was about. None of the podcasts were about. This was 30 years ago. Stan was just a really personable, gently spoken guy. He knew how to touch an emotional chord with you. I was a goalkeeper. There was 2 keepers. I was the better one. I didn't train for like 3 weeks. I had a girlfriend, Lisa. I don't know why I was named that. There you go. Anyway, so I started to just sack training off. And he picked us for the game on the Sunday, and he pulled us to he named us in the team, and I'd been playing consistently. And he just pulled us to one side in the change room and says, I've picked you here because you're the better goalkeeper, and I'm going to keep picking you because we're going to win the league and we need you. But here's the thing. I need you to respect the fact that he isn't going to play much, because back then we didn't really do roll on, roll off. I imagine the other keeper didn't even get on because it wasn't as inclusive as it was then. He says, but I want you to appreciate the fact that I'm going to take pelters on the back of the fact that you haven't been training. I'm going to keep picking you, but you haven't been training. So it's up to you. Now, what he could have said was, unless you train, I'm not picking you. But he knew he needed to pick us. So he cut through all of the bull and just went, look, let's be real with each other. You're going to play the last 4 games, but you haven't been training, and that looks bad on me, and it's really harsh on the kid who has been training. And that left such a mark on me, on that personal level, to go, Jesus, he's really struck a chord there. I've got responsibility to him as a manager to make sure I train, let alone my teammates who need us to train and stay sharp. Even though training back then was run up and down the hill and have a game. It was more the way he went about it, you know what I mean? So, him really, but the other example is a guy called Stephen Sullivan, I didn't have as my coach. He's actually a mate. He's actually a year younger than me. He's been coaching my boy Joe since he was 8, football, till he's 14. Joe fell a little bit. Our love of football, he had the experiences we're talking about where he's moved around and game time wasn't maybe what it could have been, and internal politics, all that stuff that I wish wasn't there, but is. Steve put him on track. He looked after him for 6 years. And I wish every kid, myself included, when they were growing up, could have a Stephen Sullivan in charge of them. Because he's just an all-round great guy who, when the players are older, they will appreciate him when they're older, and they'll keep in touch, that type of thing, like the Dice story. So what's the trend of the 2 examples I've given? They're great people. They're not great technical knowledge. Stephen knows his stuff, don't get me wrong. Stan didn't really emphasise that. It was 4-4-2, play forward, whatever. But how they got a tune out of you, how much you respected them, and how they treated you at a time when the school teachers were basically, I'm not saying it was that far past the cane, but you got rollicking at school and you knew your place, by the way. There was a compassionate level to those 2 guys, which I wish could be replicated more often, instead of empire builders who treat their team as this hugely important, massive thing in their life. Forget all about the children, which unfortunately does happen a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Another question I love asking is, what's the most underrated skill in basketball, or maybe say in coaching, in general coaching terms, for people that are listening that don't coach basketball, that you think we've maybe overlooked as coaches in the game?
In basketball terms, the most underrated
underrated skill or overlooked skill.
The most overlooked thing would, for me, definitely be the ability to dribble with your weaker hand or your off hand, or whatever you want to call it. You know, moves and things like that are one thing, but if I can't handle the ball, there's going to be a ceiling to how much I can get better. Simple as that. Which is why Brazil win football tournaments and Spain win football tournaments and England don't. Because the mastery of the ball and the technical ability of being able to manage the ball in tight situations separates players. So yes, I know it's football, but you talk about the greatest players of all time. We had a big thing in this country about size, physicality. But the best two players ever are Messi and Maradona, 5'9", and Iniesta's probably there, and he's about 5'9", 5'10". So hold on, 3 of the best 5 players of all time are under 5'10", and we're still banging on about getting 6'6" kids in. And in basketball terms, definitely ball handling and athleticism. I don't think there's enough even now, and we probably can do more from our side. In fact, that is part of the mission, I think, to do that. Once you've gone through your fundamentals phase, how good is the core stability of these kids? I'm not in great shape now at 44, but I can exercise a number of core movements perfectly well. 13-year-olds can't, because they just haven't done that. So I think the physical literacy of the kids is now more and more important as well. But in terms of skills, ball handling, 100%. What do you think?
I think I couldn't speak for you on in basketball terms. I wouldn't know the game well enough. But I do think the physical
Yeah,
just that's why I'm here, you know. But I do think that's come up a few times, is the physical literacy. It's the kids that there's a great picture got from a coaching course. It was a presentation, and it was about maybe 20 years ago. Parents were dragging their kids inside, whereas now they're pulling their kids out. They're inside their phone. I thought it was clever. It was, again, it's just I'm such a visual learner. It's just the visual things that stick with me.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll send you if I can find the clip. But
send us everything.
What I like what you were saying there about using your, you know, being able to dribble on both sides. When I was working with a coach last year, he had a thing where he's all about language, and it was like, we don't call it our weaker side, we call it our alternative side. Is that
offhand? Yeah.
Is that what you would have as well?
That, you know, we can sometimes get wrapped up with that. I don't usually say a weaker hand. I usually say not shooting hand.
Not shooting hand. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but offhand. I think it's a fair point. Like it's not a weakness; it's an area for development.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way we think of it. And as well with substitutions, you hear these kind of
impact.
Is that what you call them? I've heard game changers before.
Game changers, impact players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on
finishers.
Facebook. Yeah. I saw that on Facebook. I mean, you can be an impact player as a sub, but not have the right impact. Made an impact.
Yeah, true.
Game changers I like.
Yeah.
Game changers I like. But I think
finishers.
Part of me.
The kids aren't stupid as a
sub. I don't know how. In basketball terms, it's about rotating. And it's about giving equal minutes for me. Which again comes back down to what we said about squad sizes. So the idea of not putting the kid on the pitch if it's a close game, I always say if that happens, on the court, of course, I always say if that happens, well, why do you just release him? Do him a favour. Do the parent a favour. Because if they're not good enough to come on the court for you for meaningful game time, then they should be in a lower league, or they should be in a different team where they're all going to come on and make that call, rather than patronize them and be condescending with, he's a good player, but this and this. No, just do what's right, and you might get the rough end of it on Facebook, because you never get the full story on Facebook. The coach released my kid. Usually when that happens, the coaches had a word and said, look, the level is too different. You know, I thought you push on more or whatever. I'm not defending coaches for releasing kids.
Yeah.
But
you never know
anything by the kid, haven't you?
Yeah, and you never know the full story. Yeah.
What is noise?
Yeah. What advice would you give a younger coach now listening that wants to go down? I suppose in Ireland we don't have professional basketball coaches. Well, sometimes they're full time, but if they're looking to pursue and go abroad or just improve, what advice would you give them?
Depends on what age group they're working with, I guess. But the best advice to give to younger coaches is to have children. I think.
Interesting. Yeah.
Have a few years. I'm not insisting that you have to have kids.
Yeah.
But do the hard yards. It's like anything, isn't it? Like, go into a primary school with one basketball which is flat and 30 kids staring at you. Can you put a good session on? Put yourself... You kind of have to go through... I don't think it's necessary... I suppose the easy GarageBand set to say would be working your craft, research. I've got really good at what I do now in this particular niche by learning on the job and being flexible and being personable and putting the player's needs first and leaving my ego at the door. But as I say, the 25-year-old me, I was totally different. I think it's maturity, and I think it's the ability to listen, take ideas on board, not be protective over an idea. If you always compare it to bands, if you look at the bands that last, they all share the songwriting royalties. They all share the songwriting responsibilities. The ones that don't last, Oasis or whatever, 3 years in, Noel Gallagher's super rich, writing all the songs. Everyone else, a quarter of the income. So be diplomat, be willing to lean on people, take ideas, be willing to give up a little bit of your own ego to be criticised. I think that's the thing when you do camps. I remember a young coach, Sam, who was here. I demoed something, but as you can probably tell off this cast, I probably talked a bit long, which I don't usually do when I coach. But I was setting the parameters because it was 20 minutes of continuous exercise and there was 3 progressions, and I just gave them all the progressions at once and then said, crack on. Usually you would stop it. I didn't want to do that. It was 30 kids. So I didn't want to have to bring 30 kids in. So I felt justified in my approach, which was to give them a full exercise. Sam was an 18-year-old. Probably been through the door about 2 months. So you can talk for far along there, like. And I'm feeling I'm king of the castle. This is my age group. It's a camp. It's on the court downstairs. And I was defensive. And I was argumentative. And it wound us up. And I had to go through all the full morning, the delivery, until lunchtime to pull them. But by then I calmed down. And I said, Sam, go have a chat. And we went in the cafe area. I said, explain what you meant. And he did. He justified it. And then we talked through how I could have done it differently. And I said, well, how would you have done it? And then we both learned something. There was no right or wrong. It was just be willing to listen, even to somebody who maybe doesn't have your experience. Because actually, you get lost and you need someone from the outside to say, yeah, you talk too long.
Yeah. There's a great, was it the All Blacks that said, I think was it their coach that said, who actually needs a team doc, is it the coach or the players? And these big,
these other things I was just dropping in. There's a snippet.
These are just from listening to things or reading things online. It was interesting. It was like, when you think about it, this big, blazing speech in the dressing room, is it a little bit weird that we do that?
But if you look at Clive Woodward in the 2003 World Cup, and I've seen the documentary, he doesn't do any of that. It's processed. They know it already.
Yeah.
Dave is a great example, my brother. When he ran teams, none of that tub thumping. So it was very much, you know what you're doing, and go and do it. But yeah, the nervous energy's there, and people have to get it out. But you're right. I don't think it makes any difference. No matter. It's like if you haven't revised for an exam and you suddenly cram in the last 10 hours before the exam, does it going to make a difference? No.
Not really. Yeah. You've lost the exam. You've lost the game before the...
Failed the exam, 100%, which I was quite familiar with as a younger person. It's a good point, yeah. Coaches that do that, it's nervous energy, isn't it? And I like it when players take over. It's their game. Let them do it. You step back. Let them do it and do it however they want to do it. Just trust them to do it. We've all had those coaches, those shouty coaches.
Yeah, completely. I'm going to wrap it up because I feel like we could actually talk here for about 5 hours. We've already got 2 hours here.
Been 2 hours.
It's been 150, but I suppose we were talking for about half an hour before we hit record. This has been one of the most enjoyable episodes I've probably done. I love the way it's so off the cuff because I usually do all my research and have all my things
For the
ready.
benefit of the listeners, I came into work. I need to stress this. I was on time, but with my dog with me today, because Friday is bring your dog to work day, and my dog's been very good. He's down there, and we got chatting. You're really good to talk to. Really easy to talk to. Like every Irish person I've ever met in my life, I have to say. You're good for the banter and for the crack. But yeah, lovely to talk about it, and actually it makes me reflect on, I guess, the rationale why you do things. You hear the word coach, and I sometimes don't even refer myself as a coach because I think it's an easy word to say I'm a coach, just like I'm a teacher, but actually. It's more of an activity leader, more of a, I don't know if there's an all-encompassing word for it, where
mentor.
Mentor, did you say? Yeah, that's a better word, because you're actually developing more than ever before. I think you're really focusing on the person behind the player, and that is the way coaching's going, and thank goodness as well, I think that's what we do really well here at the Eagles. We give the players the game, And we give them room to grow, because unless you trust them to grow and develop and give them that empowerment, you're not going to get the most out of them.
Yeah, completely.
But I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great. Well done.
Honestly, sorry.
I was going to run into. I do a segment at the end of every episode. It's called the Sideline 7. So it's the same 7 questions for every guest.
I do a similar thing with my wife for date. I went through a game called Alternatives, and I was like, let's get salt and vinegar or prawn cocktail. So it was like a conversation starter.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah, but she was like the 10th date I had, because I was like dating a lot, because I was trying to get back in the game. She was like, after the 4th question, like North Bar or Galaxy, so somebody, she was like, right, how many girls have you done this with? And I had to be honest with her. She said, well, don't do it with me. Cut the box.
Yeah, no, it's same 7 questions at the end of every episode. Question 1, what's your favourite quote? Are you a bit of a quotes fan? Do you like them?
Oh, wow. That's an amazing question, right? That's how I think. I kind of feel the pressure, because you said we're wrapping it up, but you might have been...
But, like, you could top provoking. We can keep going for another hour and a half if you want.
Quote. It's a funny one. It's Brian Clough. Well, there's 2 quotes. The trick to management, the trick to good management, is keeping the players who don't like you away from the players who haven't decided yet. So who that was, it was in football. And the other one was, again, football. I mean, there's a few Vince Lombardi ones, don't get me wrong, and things like that, but it was talking about making tough decisions as a coach, as a manager. So you're going to be very popular here. And I think it was Clough. I hope it was Clough, because Clough was just genius. Flawed, but genius. And he said, well, you know what, you can try and you can strive your life to be popular, but at the end of the day, the number of people that turn up at your funeral will still be dictated by the weather.
Okay. What? Jesus.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right.
So I think those 2, yeah, they'll do for now. And then when I leave here, I'll think of another 5 and I'll text you.
Yeah, do text me. Yeah, and I love the way came up recently. What was it? If just because you're talking about people liking you and stuff as coaches, if you want to be a people pleaser, if you want people to like you, don't become a coach, because you're never gonna unless
the primary school kids, in which case. But I don't think they need to like you. I think that the more they like you, I don't know, it's you're there to do a job. Respect and value, I think, are the right words, rather than like. Yeah, I don't want them to really like me. I mean, I like them to like me, but it doesn't really matter if they do or they don't like me, as long as I get them doing what they need to do.
Yeah, good point. Question 2, what's the best sporting event you've been to? You can pick maybe one you have been or one you'd love to go to.
I haven't been to enough, Like, I haven't been to enough, whether it's the kids, when I had the kids. The best sporting event. I haven't been to any Olympics. Went to an NBA game, which was pretty awesome. A couple of NBA games. I'll probably say for the memory, it was an NFL game. It was Miami Dolphins. When the first time I went to the States with my family when I was 11. That was a great memory. Met Dan Marino. I think the day of the game, we had a tour of the stadium. So that's special, because it was lovely with my kids being around the same age as all of us were then. It's pretty special. Look back and remember that one.
Brilliant. Anything on your bucket list? Anything you want to go to?
I've skydived and bungee jumped, which was awesome. More travelling, would have to say, and nothing in particular. I think my priorities are my kids, really, making sure they are okay. I don't know if there's anything else. What's on yours?
Well, I was more talking about sporting list bucket event, or the actual.
Apologies.
You're good. Bucket list.
Bucket list. I guess would be Newcastle Champions League final if we get there. Yeah, that would be pretty unbelievable.
Never say never.
Yeah, until we get done for some sort of financial irregularities and end up in Division 3.
Question 3: biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it? You don't have to go too deep with this one.
Biggest setback or challenge? I love how you tell me to be brief.
No, you don't have to go too deep.
No, I need to be told. To wind it in. Biggest setback or challenge in my career? Changing career was the biggest challenge, from football to basketball. Coming in this organisation with everything that had gone on before, being lucky to be on the journey which so many other people have done so much hard work to get basketball to this level, a minority sport in the northeast which is dominated by football. To come into that situation and be good enough and to perform and to not let my brother down, who is tremendously respected in this environment for all the stuff he's done in basketball and with Fab and everything. And he's a trustee of the foundation. So for me, the challenge is always just do a good job. You're going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes, but just do a good job. And this has been the biggest challenge, because I find the biggest challenge is always relative to how much you care. It's not really that much of a challenge if you don't really care. You just turn up and leave. But from the moment I stepped in here, there's been an overriding responsibility and determination to not undo the great work of those who have started this and made all this possible. I'm working at the best basketball arena in the country, with the biggest cohort of the 10s probably in the club for a long way. And I'm very honoured to be and privileged to be able to do it, really. So not to take that lightly.
Yeah, very good. Question 4 then, kind of the flip side, what's your biggest achievement on or off the court / pitch?
Wow. Getting my first class honours degree for what it meant at the time, getting me a degree and proving that the years of not working hard at school and just going through rubbish job to rubbish job in a family of people who have achieved, low degrees and stuff, to get that first, not just to get the degree, but to get the first, which I was always aiming for, at that time in my life was incredibly special.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Question 5, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
That's a really great question.
It's brought up some interesting answers.
Slow down. Think before you speak. Think before you act. And I wouldn't even give that to my 18-year-old self. I'd apply it to my 28 and 30-year-old self as well. I'm too impulsive. Mistakes I've made have been of rushing in, not thinking about the consequences of what I've done, what I've said. I've got impulsive characteristics which can hurt you, but at the same time, those very same characteristics make me pretty good at the job I do, because I'm emotional and passionate, and I've got all those traits as well. So, but definitely to slow down and consider others more, and spend more time with your parents. I think when you get to 18, you want to attack the world. I think you neglect the people who have put you in such good stead, and that's probably still the same now.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one. Question 6, who would be your dream dinner guest and why? You can open up the table to a few people if you want.
Muhammad Ali.
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
Definitely Ali, yeah. Probably, and if it was a musician, it would be Billy Joel, because I'm just a ridiculously huge Billy Joel fan. I want to know why he wrote Vienna and Scenes from the Italian Restaurant and all these songs which are constantly on the car. Or Bob Dylan, maybe. But Muhammad Ali, because what he represented. Because that guy stood up, that guy doesn't. People talk about Jordan, and I'm a huge Jordan fan as a player. But when you compare the social significance of what Ali went through and what he did, I mean, that guy's up there for me. He's the greatest sportsman of all time, because sport transcends life. And Ali represented that. Everything that was great about the strength of character and everything we want to be, everything we want to create in the young players, Ali carried that, didn't he? With the courage of his convictions. I mean, unbelievable person.
Yeah, great point. I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to hit the 2-hour mark at the final question.
Perfect.
If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
How many chapters is there? What chapter will it be called? Oh God, I don't know, man. That's a hard one. My life is a book. What chapter? I can't think of anything, because I don't think anything I can think of is good enough. Can you give me some clues? What have you had in the past?
The climb has come up a few times. The journey. Yeah. One of them was the end. I think that was more from a sporting context, because she had just retired from elite sport. What else has been kind of slowing down, or the foundation, the building blocks, those sort of things?
I think the chapter would be called something about my children, but I can't honestly think.
That's it's a deep question.
Very demoralising and disappointing that I can have so many words over the last 2 hours and I can't give you a chapter.
I really fancy words as well.
Good words, yeah. I like a good long word.
Brilliant.
I guess we'll say the next step.
The next step.
Keep it nice and generic.
Love it. Love it. Well, that's 2 hours. Look, the most impromptu, but probably most thought-provoking. I'm going to say rewarding's the wrong word, but I've gotten a lot from this conversation. I can't wait to go back and listen and make more notes. But I've really enjoyed this.
Pleasure speaking to you. I've got no work done, but I'll jump on emails on the weekend. But keep it going. I think you're really good to talk to, and I can't wait to listen to the stuff that you've been doing in the other interviews. Have a great night at the match tonight. Hopefully you'll be a lucky charm as we try to be London Lions.
Hopefully. You never know.
Good luck with
St. Paddy's Day, you know.
Good luck with everything, and hope it goes well with what you're doing tonight. It sounds really exciting.
Brilliant. Well, thanks a million.